Hi, in today's episode we are going to be talking about how to research your book. So we're going to look at a few of the more common places that you can go to actually research your fiction book, and then we're also going to look at some places you can store the research that you've done. And at the end I'm going to issue a word of caution, so keep listening. Welcome to the Turning Readers into Writers podcast, where we teach beginner writers how to find the time and the confidence to write their first novel. I'm your host, Emma Desi, and I'm very excited that you're here. Thank you for joining me today, because if you've been longing to write your novel for forever, then this is the place to be. Think of this as your weekly dose of encouragement, of hand-holding and general cheerleading as you figure out how you're going to write your first novel. Trust me, as a mum of 3 young kids, I know how tricky it can be to tuck some time aside for yourself on a regular basis. And even when you do find that spare 5 minutes, you can feel so overwhelmed that no writing gets done. Trust me, I have been there, but this podcast is going to help you in practical ways, because once a week I'll be delivering an episode that gives you steps to building a writing routine, encouragement to build your confidence, and cheerleading until you reach the end. Okay, let's start. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Turning Readers into Writers. And today we are looking at how to research a novel. It's important that you do research your book, whether you are writing fiction or non-fiction. I guess it's more obvious if you're writing non-fiction, because your book then will be most likely entirely dependent on research. Whether that be research you have carried out yourself or whether you have conducted an analysis of existing research. But if you are writing fiction, I think it is equally important to, at the very least, do some research, even if it is just about the place where your story is set or small details that crop up in your story and you research them as and when they arise. Research can add that little bit extra authenticity to your story. It can surface up minor details that you only discover when you dive into a subject, and those are the little things that can really pull your reader into the story and make the tale that you're telling extra believable. So first of all, let's have a look at where you should do your research. And there are a number of places that you can start, some more obvious than others, but I'm going to give you a list of the sort of more common ones, and these should spark some ideas for you where you can take your research further should you need to. So the first thing that you could do is find an expert. So, for example, if you're writing a police procedural or a medical thriller of some sort, or perhaps even a historical novel, you can find somebody who is an expert in that area, whether they might be a surgeon or a doctor or perhaps a retired police officer, or somebody you know that has an interest or an expertise in a particular aspect of history, whether it be a general history of World War I or World War II, a specific expertise in something like Victorian cooking, something like that. Find someone who's an expert and you can approach them. There is no guarantee that that they're going to help you, but you might be surprised and that they are happy to help. Often, the more niche your research is, the more likely you are to find somebody who's open and willing to helping you. You know, it could even be something like, I'm just trying to think, writing about the crochet industry in the UK in 1870s and 1880s, something like that. I am sure you would find somebody who's utterly passionate about that, because it's so niche, because there possibly isn't a lot of information out there. The people that you do find are super passionate and would love to help you know about their craft, know about what they love, and then reflect it correctly in your novel. But either way, just remember, if you don't ask, you don't get. So always ask. Another way that you can do your research is through books, and that seems an obvious choice, I know. You can use non-fiction books, of course, and you'll be able to research almost any topic under the sun, from the way people dress to architecture, foreign languages or unusual dialects, and even the different foods that are popular in different countries. You'll find whatever you need in a book somewhere. But you can also use fiction as a part of your research. It was Isabel Allende who I listened to, and she made the good point that other writers have also done their research. So if you are writing your novel either on a similar topic, I don't know why tea plantations in Malaysia have come to mind, but say your book is set there, you can read other books that are also set in tea plantations in Malaysia, because that writer will no doubt have done their research as well. So you can take advantage of the work that they've done, and you can incorporate little details that they've found into your book. Remember, you're not copying though, it's just a detail that you found that was interesting about a place or an industry, and you can take that and meld it to fit your own story and the own voice that you've got. Another place that I have discovered recently, I don't know why, but only just recently, I've kind of rediscovered, shall we say, YouTube. So I've known it primarily as the place where, my children, they watch other children play games, and they watch other children open presents. But I've also come to realise that it is in fact a search engine all of its own, and I've been amazed at what I've found there. So for example, I'm currently writing a story that's based in the Philippines, and I wanted to know some specific things that are about the Philippines culture. One of them being hand gestures that are used. In each culture, we all have a way that we use our hands to express ourselves. I think probably Italy is the most famous kind of in the Western world. And also, the common phrases that we use, break the camel's back, the last straw, that kind of thing. So I was looking up Philippine hand gestures, and sure enough, there are a number of videos all about Philippine hand gestures, other kind of sounds that they use that indicate certain things. So I got my research there, so I'm able to include those little details in my book. It's also set in a fishing village, so I needed to know about fishing vessels and how far they go and what they look like and how they're used. And there you go. There was an American couple who are sailing around the world, and they bump into a Philippines fishing boat and are given a really extensive tour of the boat and how it works. And so right there in that one video, I have everything I need to know for the purposes of my novel. It's amazing. It's amazing. But you'll also find, old footage there of cities and villages and the countryside of the town that you're writing about. You'll find Pathé news clips from bygone days. You'll find photographs. You'll find people who have an interest in all variety of life and hobbies and interests and parts of the world. So YouTube is a real treasure chest, and not just to be seen as a place where games are played. Type your search term in and you will be amazed. A third place I want to mention, well, that would be social media, and it's a surprisingly useful tool. It's not as wide-ranging perhaps as something like YouTube, but Facebook, for example, you'll find groups and pages that cover all sorts of subjects. I did a random kind of search when I was putting this podcast together, and I searched graveyards and tombstones, and lots of groups popped up there. And then I typed in sheep shearing, and again, lots of groups, lots of pages turned up from all different parts of the world. So if you're looking for information about something that is on the opposite side of the world to you, you can find it there on social media as well. And also, I think the thing about social media as well is you can make a connection. So you can make a connection with one of the experts who are up on Facebook, and they, because of the nature of the platform, it's much more social. It's much more friendly, and if you approached somebody, they're more than likely happy to reply to any inquiries you've got, and I'm sure would love to help you with your research. So that's another great way of doing it. In fact, it reminds me of a friend of mine who is a huge Hollywood fan. He loves the Hollywood of the 1930s and 40s and is a Jean Harlow fan in particular. And through Facebook, he met a Jean Harlow expert, someone who has written a book about Jean Harlow. And so when he went to LA, they got in touch, they met up, and this guy was able to give him a tour around all the hot spots that pertain to Jean Harlow's life. And so for someone who is a fan, that was a really rare and special time. So it's amazing what who you can meet over the internet these days and who has what skills and knowledge. Right, let's move on to the next one, which is travelling. So nothing quite beats this, I don't think, but if you can afford the time and the money to go travelling to the place that you are writing about, there's no better research that you can do, because that's where you not only find out all the facts and figures about a place, but you get a feel for there as well. You see the people going about their daily business, you see the architecture and how it's used, the kind of the state that it's in, whether things are well maintained or whether they're sort of crumbling around you. You get to experience public transport and how easy or difficult it is to move around from one place to another. So nothing beats being in the midst of that action, and if you can go to where you're writing about, you'll benefit in many, many ways. Not just for your writing, it has to be said, but also for your own life experiences. But if you can't go travelling, then I certainly recommend this next one, which is Google Maps. It's a great alternative, especially if you use the Street View. If you use the Street View, you can dive down into any town or city, and you can, it's almost like walking along the streets, you can see which shops are there, you can see the colour of the taxis, what kind of buses they have, the shops that are in each neighbourhood, what people are wearing, and what public buildings are like. So my first novel was set in Glasgow, and even though it's the city in which I was born, a number of scenes take place in parts of the city that I don't really know and I've never lived in. So I was able to use Google Maps to familiarise myself with those new neighbourhoods, and I could work out, how long it might take somebody to travel from one part of town to another, whether they're getting the train or the bus or the car, or even if they're out for a walk. So Google Maps is another great alternative if you're not able to actually get to where you're going, you can't travel there. So those are some great places that you can do some of your initial research, most of it desktop, which is even better, and then if you get to travel, well, that's lovely too. But once you've researched your novel, where are you going to keep these little nuggets of information? You can, of course, just keep a plain old-fashioned notepad, nothing wrong with that. But there are also some digital resources out there, and I'll just take you through a couple of those. Many writers use Scrivener. It's one of the most widely used writing tools out there, and it does have a great research section. And actually, Scrivener is not the most intuitive program, but the way it can hold, retain and repurpose your research is one of its most appealing functions. So it can not just save text documents for you or photographs, not just links to website, but it will also hold the whole page for you. So you can see the actual web page there in your Scrivener program, but you can also, if you need to use kind of like a bibliography and you want to link, you've got footnotes, you can add in the footnotes in there as well, pop in your research that you can come back and use at a later date and reorganize as well as your book progresses and the story evolves. Really, really useful function. I have to admit I don't use it, but I have watched tutorials on it and I've seen that it's really, really worth investigating further. And so if I was to head down the historical route, for example, and write an historical novel, that is definitely something that I would be using. Another tool you can use is Trello or Slack. Both of these are project management tools and they're both free to use. So in there you can add notes and photographs, you can put attachments and web links, anything that you want really, you can put it in there. And it's a sort of card system. It's like having a series of little index cards, and you can move them around as and when you have finished doing your research, perhaps in category of research or research still to be done. So you can play around with those and move things from one board to another as and when they're needed. You can even categorize your research, not just with labels, but also with color coding as well. So that can be a really, really useful tool. Another one that you can use, two similar ones, Evernote and Dropbox. These are great tools that you can use on the go, so no matter where you are or what device you're using, you can drop research into both of those programs, and then when you get back to your desk at home, you can open them up and everything is there. If you're working with somebody, if you're co-writing a project, then you can share the Evernote or the Dropbox and share all the resources that are in there. Again, I haven't used these tools very extensively, but I know from other people that they're really useful and very, very popular. So if you haven't discovered them yet, it's worth having a little look. So I do want to just issue a little word of caution and I want to caution you against going down the research rabbit hole. You know yourself, when you're on your phone and you're scrolling, you can get sucked into one website, then another, and of course it's exactly the same when you're doing your desktop research for your novel. Don't let that happen to you. Remember that you have a job to do. So you need to focus on what is pertinent to your story and give yourself a strict deadline for when not only you're going to stop researching that day, but when you're going to stop researching full stop. Because there has to come a point where the research part of your job has finished and then the writing part of your job begins. So to do this, I urge you to be specific about what it is that you need to research. For example, with the manuscript I'm working on at the moment, I don't need to research the entire history and cultural norms of the Philippines, but I do need to be aware of the food that's used, the languages that are spoke, and popular foods, and as I say, about the fishing boats. I only need to know what I need to know. I don't need to know everything about the Philippines. Similarly, if you're writing about somebody who works in a mill in 1950s Lancashire, then you need to have an idea of how the mill works, the type of hours that they do, the jobs that are available, the occupations that are done, and what people wear, and perhaps how people spend their time in the evening. But you don't need to be an expert on all things Lancastrian, and you don't need to be an expert on cotton mills. You just need to know what you need to know. So, remember, you are writing a novel, a piece of fiction. You're not writing a thesis for a PhD. So you don't want to bombard your reader with facts that they don't need to know for the purposes of the story. You're just simply trying to imbue the tone of the place and the period of the place. So just bear that in mind. And remember, you can always go back and fill in the missing blanks further down the line. So if you're writing a scene and you realise that you don't know the name for something or other, put in a comment, put it in the notes that you need to go back and check that out. But don't let it derail you. Don't use that as an excuse to go back and start your research again. It's important to begin the writing and keep going, and not to use the research as an excuse to procrastinate. That dreaded word. So there we go. We've got a few options there of where you can do your research. You can find an expert who's willing to help you. You can look at books, not just non-fiction books, but also, remember Isabel Allende, and she says use the research that other fiction writers have done. One of my biggest recommendations at the moment is YouTube. That's a really great resource. Social media in particular, somewhere like Facebook, where it's all about making connections. It's amazing who you'll meet there. If you have the time and the money, let's go traveling, go and see where you're writing about, really get the feel for the place. And if you can't do that, don't forget about Google Maps. It's a really, really great alternative. We've looked at a few options you have to store your research, whether it be plain old, good old-fashioned notepad and pen, whether it's your writing tool, so for example Scrivener, maybe a project management tool like Trello or Slack, or even just a productivity tool like Evernote and Dropbox. And remember my word of caution, don't get sucked down that research rabbit hole. Remember, you've got a job to do, and give yourself a deadline, not just for that day's research, but the research on a whole, because the next part of your job is to write the story. All right, I hope that was useful to you. I hope that's given you some ideas of where you can go to start your research. And of course, if you find somewhere that I haven't mentioned here that you think is really useful, please do put it in the comments below, or get in touch with me and I can incorporate it further down the line. It's always great for everybody to learn about new resources. The internet is a wonderful place and a vast place, so it's always great to hear about new places out there. All right, take care for now, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, but just before you go, I want to let you know about my August Accelerator. August is going to be a month of training, especially for you if you are a beginner writer. I'm going to be interviewing people in my Facebook group, Turning Readers into Writers, all about many aspects of writing a novel. We have people talking about how to manage your time, how to deal with imposter syndrome, how you can use meditation in your creativity, how to avoid that dreaded thing, procrastination, as well as the how-tos. For example, how to write memoir, how to write poetry, how to write romance, and how to write in a series. If this sounds good to you, head on over to Turning Readers into Writers, where you can join the group and get free access to all of these amazing speakers. See you in there.